So if we go to the data entry screen, we can begin modifying the application to suit our needs. So first, we should probably change what the name of the organization is. Then we might want to change the ranges where things turn red, yellow, and green. So right now the default is set at 80, 60, and 60. So maybe we'll do 90% it turns green, 80% it turns yellow, and then red defaults to anything below 80%. We can also change the name of the perspectives. So currently this happens to say financial issues. If I were to change it, I could just key in, say, financial perspective. And now when I go to the other tabs, of course, it will say financial perspective. The strategy map now says financial perspective. And so does the scorecard, and so do each of the specific perspective reports. So going back to the data entry, let's say our first objective is something like drive revenue. Now with revenue, high values are good, so here we'll leave it as a plus indicating high values are good, and the indicator name for the sake of argument will be sales. Right now the target is 1 for each month. Let's start off with something that's sure to be red. Let's say we start off with sales of 0.15 in January up to 0.7 in February. Let's say we come close to target in March, April, we finally hit target, and then we go over target in May, and just keep on getting better. So now what we should be able to do is just to see the changes we've made. If we go to the scorecard, you'll see that now the first strategic objective name is drive revenue. Sales is in fact the name of the first indicator, and you can see that curve that we've described. Now right now we're looking at January, so January is a red icon. Let's go to February. It's still red. If I go to March, you'll see, oops, I went by March. You can see with March green and so on, and you can see the values change as we skip through the months. So basically that's how the overall scorecard works. If I go back to the data entry, we can now put in other metrics. Let's say, for example, we have cost is another strategic objective. Now, for cost, high values are bad. So we'll put in a minus sign, and the indicator might be just costs for the sake of argument. And in this case, remember, high values are bad. So our target is 2. Let's again begin with the performance below target. But in this case, that means our costs are, should be above target. So that'll give us a red. Maybe we get to target in February, and then we begin being a bit below target by March, April, May. Now, again, let's take a look at how that reflects in the scorecard. In this case, you can see that, again, with the spark line, you can see the chart. If I go back to January, you'll see that it's also red because, again, high values are bad. My performance is red. February, we managed to hit target at 2. By March, we're at 1.9, but because low values are good, it's lower than 2. We're performing 105%, and the icon is green for that month. Now, we also have an overall dial, which is kind of cool for each perspective. The way that this is calculated is it takes the average score across the indicator. So in this case, we take 95 plus 105 plus 83 plus 112 plus 110 and add them up, divide by 5, and give you that average. So in this case, the red, yellow, green is still set by the overall performance ranges we put on the data entry screen. Now, the final thing I'll say about indicators is if you don't want them all, you can just delete them. So in this case, I'll delete the last 2 and the data. Now, when I delete them, what will happen is if I go to the scorecard, now those icons are grayed out, and of course there's no data. So that covers off all you really need to know about setting up the data entry portion of the Excel spreadsheet. On the next webinar, I'll step into the strategy map and how you go about creating that.